Welcome back to my channel. I'm Brandy, and we were diving into another episode of Horror Media Monthly. Y'all already know the drill. We've been doing this for a bit. The first episode was back in March already, and here we are in October, and the episode for September is coming out. This has been so incredibly fun for me to make. I'm trying to get the ball rolling here, and I hope that you guys like what I'm doing. I would love to be able to do more horror content on YouTube in general, so I feel like this is my step in that direction. So please, as always, if you do like this, give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below. What are your thoughts overall on this series so far? And if you haven't checked out the other episodes, I'll put a playlist up too, so you can check out the previous ones. I always say like where you can find the movies, the shows, the games, the prices, all of that stuff. So it should be still relevant even if you're watching it after the fact. But without further ado, we're going to get into the month of September and all of the horror content that I consumed. And we got a lot coming up. So first off, we're going to start off with the movies. I saw a lot of new things in theaters, but then was also happy to catch things that came out either earlier this year or not that long ago. So starting off strong, we're going to start off with Immaculate. Now, Immaculate actually came out in theaters earlier this year, but I was able to catch it on Hulu. And I was excited because I knew that this was similar to The First Omen, which also came out earlier this year and I covered in a previous episode. So I went in with that thought in mind, and honestly, it didn't disappoint. Immaculate is about an American nun who embarks on a new journey when she joins a remote convent in the Italian countryside. However, her warm welcome quickly turns into a living nightmare when she discovers her new home harbors a sinister secret and unspeakable horrors. This movie, it draws your viewer in right away because you know something's messed up. Whenever it's like a religious place, especially being in Italy and it's like old fashioned. I don't know, something about that gives me like an eerie vibe in movies right off the rip. And I knew things were gonna get twisted and weird, and it starts off throwing you right into already some of the characters being very awkward and strange. So before anything weird even happens, you know shit's gonna get weird. I like this movie. If I'm thinking about it in comparison to The First Omen, very similar. You could almost confuse these two movies, but there is some things in this that I liked more, some things I liked less. I definitely implore all y'all to go check it out if you haven't done so already. It was a pretty decent movie, and it's not typically a genre of horror that's really my cup of tea, but I like this one. Now, next up was kind of a strange one. I watched this movie not thinking, oh, I'm watching a horror movie for my next video. I just watched it, and then I was like, but wait, this could work. And that is actually the movie The New Mutants. Now, this movie actually came out in 2020. I personally had just never seen it, and I've been on such an X-Men and just Marvel in general kick lately, and this was on Disney Plus. They have their whole like catalog of stuff over there. And in the description of this, it was listed as a horror movie. And I was like, an X-Men movie as a horror movie? I mean, I know they have like fighting and sometimes blood and stuff, but a horror movie? No, this is a horror movie. It's not necessarily super scary because it is meant for, a younger audience. But there were some jump scares in this that got me. There was quite a few moments that I was like, and that's why it's a horror movie. So, The New Mutants, it follows 5 teenage mutants, Mirage, Wolfbane, Cannonball, Sunspot, and Magic. And they undergo treatments at a secret institution that's supposed to cure them of their dangerous powers. They're invited by Dr. Cecilia Reyes to share their stories, their memories, and everything soon turns into terrifying realities as they start to question why they're being held there and who's trying to destroy them. At first, this definitely feels as if they're trying to have Professor Xavier's school, but it's more of like a mental facility of sorts. But if you've also watched Logan, I feel like I got information about where they were doing like the testing on the kids and stuff. So this movie had me thinking, is it going this direction? Is it going that direction? I didn't really know. And at no point in time was I anticipating what was going to happen in this one. If you want superheroes and you want horror, I feel like this is the perfect combination for you. Then next up, I hit theaters this month because a lot of stuff dropped in September, and you best know I went to go see Beetlejuice in theaters. I'm a huge fan of just Tim Burton in general. I'm a huge fan of the original Beetlejuice, and I could not wait for this second one to drop. I knew it was going to be good. It had so much of the original cast, plus Janet Ortega, which I really, really love all of the things that she's been in. Honestly, she kind of acts as the same character in all things, but it's a character that I really like, so I'm not mad about it. But for anyone that isn't familiar with it, 3 generations of the Dietz family return home to Winter River after unexpected family tragedy. Still haunted by Beetlejuice, Lydia's life soon gets turned upside down when her rebellious teenage daughter discovers a mysterious portal to the afterlife. When someone says Beetlejuice's name 3 times, the mischievous demon gleefully returns to unleash his very own brand of mayhem. I have a couple thoughts on this movie. I don't want to go into spoilers. I try to make these episodes where I'm just telling you about it. That way you can go seek it out and make your own decisions. So, without going into spoiler territory, I enjoyed this movie. I did find it cheesy, but honestly, the original's kind of cheesy. So, I feel like I might be desensitized to the original, which is why this one stood out more in my brain of being kind of cheesy, but it was fun. The story itself, there were parts of it that I felt as if they just kind of mashed things together. There were certain characters that they kind of lifted up to not have much go on with them. But then there was also some characters that they lifted up that had some twists that I wasn't anticipating. So, in terms of following this story and where things were going, it definitely took me for a couple of turns that I appreciated. However, I did have some problems with the antagonists and how the story went through some of their storylines, and I'm going to leave it at that to not spoil things. If you've seen the movie, you know what I am kind of referencing. Some things just kind of happen at a very quick pace, and I'm like, oh, we had a whole movie for this, and this, and then that happens. I am hoping, though, because I'm pretty sure that they tease there's going to be a third, so I'm hoping that they kind of built up some of these characters to have them be more prominent in the third, if that happens. If we don't get a third, then this kind of feels eh. But in general, I liked it for what it was. It isn't the original, but I feel like they were trying to take elements of that with its own story being brought forward. So, in all, I did enjoy this. It was fun, it was cheeky, and Michael Keaton does an amazing job, as always. Next up, I went back to the theaters and I saw Speak No Evil. Now, I've literally been seeing trailers for this movie pretty much all year. I feel like I've been seeing trailers for this for like the past 5 months. So I already knew what the movie was going to be about. I know it is a remake of a foreign film that only came out a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So they kind of jumped on it quick to make an English remake of it. But I love James McAvoy. So anything that he's in, I already know. Even if the movie is trash, it's going to be good because he's an incredible actor. So I went into this with high hopes, even though I kind of already knew the story from the trailer. And when you watch it, it pretty much gives you the synopsis of what's going to go down. So, Speak No Evil is about a dream holiday that turns into a living nightmare when an American couple and their daughter spend the weekend at a British family's idyllic country estate. And this estate that they're in is in the middle of nowhere. The family is super weird from the very beginning of the movie. So I don't know why in hell they would have decided, hey, let's go spend the weekend there. Come on. Come on, people. Let's put some common sense together. If people are super weird to make you uncomfortable, I don't care if you have a crumbling marriage. Don't go. That's weird. You're weird. Everything was weird. This movie, it took me by surprise at a couple of parts. However, I did hear that it was slightly watered down from the original. I don't know if it was necessarily watered down in terms of like the violence or the gore, or if it was watered down in terms of things that could have happened in the other one. If it is in terms of things, I'm okay with that. I don't need that. I don't feel like they need to have stuff like essay and whatnot in a movie to make it better. Sometimes it's just more for the like, oh, factor of like, oh my god, what's happening? And this movie had plenty of that without needing that. So I don't know if that's what they left out or that's what was changed. But either way, don't have to worry about any of that with this movie. It is messed up in so many other avenues, but I did enjoy it. However, it is a slow burn. For the first like 40 something minutes of this movie, a whole lot of nothing happens. So if you're expecting horror in the beginning, you're getting nothing. So if you want a nice slow burn movie, I would recommend this one. And last but not least, I probably saw one of the weirdest, worst horror movies I've ever seen. Now, I've only seen a couple of horror movies that I would genuinely say were really bad. In a multitude of ways, and I feel like this one was there. And that's unfortunate because up until the last like 30 minutes of the movie, I quite enjoyed this movie. And that is The Substance. I saw this one in theaters. I saw it with my dad, which, if you've seen it, you know why that's weird. There is so many naked people in this movie. I'm just going to start off with that. So going to a movie of that nature with lots of body horror with your dad, yeah, I was uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable. So for anyone who's not familiar with The Substance, which I wouldn't be surprised if you weren't, it kind of had like a surprise entry into theaters that not a lot of people knew about. The Substance is about Elizabeth Sparkle. She is renowned for her aerobatics so that she has, and she faces a devastating blow on her 50th birthday because her boss fires her, saying that she's old, she's washed up, all of these things. So amid her distress, a laboratory actually offers her this substance that promises to transform her into an enhanced version of herself. And she takes it. She takes it. So the first chunk of this movie, you're feeling very bad for Elizabeth, and you're understanding what she's going through, and you're sympathizing with her because it feels like everyone around her is looking at her like she's super old. But I don't understand that because it's Demi Moore and she's gorgeous, and it I 50, however old she is, she still looks so good for her age. So clearly it's all in her head, but I totally get that as somebody else who also has body dysmorphia. I understand. It doesn't matter how many people say things to you, you're always going to have your own view of yourself. And in this case, she's thinking negative thoughts, and other people are also saying negative things to her. So it really doesn't help with the pressure. However, the thing that gets weird about this is she agrees to take this substance. And what I thought was going to be, oh, she'll have less wrinkles. She might look like an enhanced version of herself. No, it is not that. I don't want to spoil it, so I won't tell you what happens. But shit gets weird very quickly. You will be absorbed in this story and wanting to know what the hell is going to happen. It's a little slow with the pacing. Like, they could have sped up some things, and the entirety of what is going on kind of comes to this climax about a 3/4 of the way through the movie, and you get kind of a conclusion, and you don't really need more movie. But for whatever reason, they decided to make like 30 to 40 more minutes of this movie after you kind of get that conclusion that you needed, and it just gets really weird. And that's the part of it that I'm like, you lost me. You lost me. You should have ended the movie because now it's bad, and it's like arguably laughably bad for the last chunk of it. I feel like they try to get too artsy fartsy with it, and it's not particularly my cup of tea with horror stuff. And just to put it in perspective, me and my dad, we and like two other people were the only ones in the theater, and by the time we left, the other people had left like mid movie. So if you don't like body horror, there was lots of weird close-ups of like body parts and mouths and like lots of auditory gross sounds. So if that is not your cup of tea, this might not be for you. But if you want something that's gonna leave your mouth open for the entirety of the movie, that's The Substance. Now that's it for the movies this month. I did play a crap ton of games. I've been doing like a horror marathon on my channel over on Twitch, and we've been playing through a lot of indie games. So I got through a bunch for the first half of September, and I'm going into more in October. So next month is going to be stacked as well. But starting off strong, we played through the casting of Frank Stone, and man, I talked about this a little bit in my last episode because I played through the demo because they had sent me the key for it. But we finally got to play through the full game this time. The shadow of Frank Stone looms over Cedar Hills, a town forever altered by his violent past. As a group of young friends are about to discover, Stone's blood-soaked legacy cuts deep, leaving scars across families, generation, and the very fabric of reality itself. Now, if you're not familiar with the creators of Dead by Daylight, they teamed up with Supermassive Games, who does Until Dawn, the Dark Pictures anthologies, to make this game. So it's more of a playable story with the lore of Dead by Daylight characters in it. I truly enjoyed this. I knew I was going to, but it blew me out the water in terms of the play style. The Easter eggs had me like looking all over the place, and stream loved it. The only downside, which I guess if you're a streamer that it would be a downside, is that they added in a new function where your chat can make the decisions for you. And my chat certainly helped in killing off a chunk of the characters that I was not trying to kill off. So could be bad, or it could just add more fun to it. It's whatever you want to take for it. I truly enjoyed it. The only thing that I wish there was a little bit more of Supermassive Games' style to some of the things of how you get the lore pieces and how things intertwine a little bit, and you get these like premonitions like they have in the other games. Didn't really have as much of that. So that's my only gripe, is that I wish there was more elements of those. I get that it was more DBD focused, but a more 50-50 mix would have been better for me. But overall, I highly recommend this game. I think it's available on like all platforms. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely grab this. Then next up, we went into a bunch of indie games this month. Starting off, Fears to Fathom dropped a new episode called Woodbury Getaway. If you've never played any of the Fears to Fathom episodes, I actually covered them. I think I did. One of my first episodes. I do have all of the playthroughs of them for the previous ones. I can put them up here. Go check them out. But each episode is its own story, and they are all viewer-submitted stories where you submit, whatever, and then they turn them into these horror episodic episodes. Obviously, I'm assuming that they, inflate the facts a little bit. But this one specifically is about Sydney Harper, who is a 23-year-old working at a consulting firm, and she plans a weekend getaway to a Woodbury rental with her friends. Little did she know what was about to unfold during their stay at the cabin. This is pretty much like the Airbnb from hell. There's so much of this where I'm like, why? Why are we doing this? Because you're literally uncomfortable with the entire situation from the very start of the game. So me, as just, as a lady with a brain, this was a bad idea from the get-go, but the twist that this game takes, chef's kiss. I didn't see it coming, and it scared the bejesus out of me. So if you want a good, more of an interactive story of sorts, you do look around and do stuff, and you have to escape in this, so you can be killed in these games, but it's not difficult to necessarily figure out what you have to do. They hold your hand a little bit and give you and once you play enough of these episodes, you understand the playstyle of how these games work. But if you haven't checked out Fears to Fathom, any of the episodes, I think the first one is free on Steam, and then the rest of them are relatively cheap as well. Definitely snag them if that's your cup of tea with horror games. Then we went back to some favorites of mine, which are some indie games from Chilla's Art. I've played a couple of those in the past, and I covered them here on the channel. They are janky as hell, but I love them. I love them. They just, they really get the viewer thinking about what's going on and trying to solve the mystery of what's happening. And the two that I played this month did not disappoint. So first up, we had Missing Children. This one was relatively short. It was like a 1-hour playthrough. It's a horror-themed adventure game by Chilla's Art, with Sato is a woman who's known for helping out children at the school, having earned herself the nickname Bully Detective. She's been called by a friend on the force, Yamada, to help out with a police case in the case of these missing children. It's pretty self-explanatory. You're kind of working as a detective to figure out where these 3 kids have gone, and you're like looking for clues, trying to piece things together. It's pretty much that. That's pretty much what it is. So if you like mysteries of the sort, check it out. It's not very long, so there's not a whole lot I can go into, but it was worth the playthrough. And then next up, we had Chilla's Art Onryo. Now, this one was a little different for me. Normally, I love all of Chilla's art right off the rip. This one was a little bit of a love-hate, because you're in this house and you're trying to figure out the whole story of the family and what happened in the house, which it's your mission in being in this house is to lift the curse of it using your exorcist camera that you're given. And as you explore the house, you uncover the secrets and you face different enemies and puzzles. It's pretty self explanatory on what you're supposed to be doing. But the thing that kind of sucks is there's like two ghosts that are constantly following you around the house. So you have to always be on the move, always running to safe rooms. Like you never can just kind of stop, really. And then on top of that, there are these twin daughters that some of the rooms they will just spawn and start attacking you. And the only defense you have is to flash your camera at them. And then eventually they stop attacking you. But the two other ghosts that are like going around the house trying to murder you, you can't do anything to defend yourself against them. They find you and you're dead. I definitely had to look a couple things up because some stuff is not very self-explanatory of what you have to do. So you have to think outside the box for a couple of the items that you find and how to use them. And it's one of those games where it will not tell you if you can't progress further in certain parts. So sometimes you might be stuck on an area thinking, where is this key for this door? But you haven't even made it to the spot where it has it yet. So it does have a little bit of that. I didn't love this one, but I would say it was probably my least favorite of the Chillis Arts games that I've played thus far. But it still wasn't bad. Next up, I played a game called The Park. This was another one that was more of a walking simulator type of horror. It takes place in a haunted theme park. It is a first-person perspective where you're following Lorraine. She is interacting and experiencing the decrepit environment of Atlantic Island Park. The game doesn't have any fighting or anything of that nature. It's more of you finding notes and trying to figure out the backstory of the park while also looking for your son, Callum, who has gotten lost within the theme park. Lorraine narrates a lot of her feelings and what's going on, and most of the story is a combination of her explaining what's going on and then you finding notes. So you're more just kind of progressing through what happened as you walk through everything. It does get weirder as you progress, and then you kind of learn more of the story, and it gets so messed up. Definitely big trigger warning if things with children and unaliving children and things of that nature is a trigger for you, because it has a lot of discussion on that nature, like right from the very beginning of it. I did like that it was more of an interactive story that we followed, but I do wish there was a little bit more gameplay elements to it. But overall, it wasn't a bad game. Last but not least, we played Is Simon There? This was another one that I had on Steam. I had so many indie games in my library, so I was just trying to power push through a lot of them, and a lot of them were only like a couple hours in length. This was another fairly short one. In the game Is Simon There? A few months have passed since the death of my son Simon, and every day since that tragic event, I find myself falling into the darkest emotions I could ever imagine. I'm haunted every day with what I have done, and sometimes I'm haunted by more than just my emotions. This is another one of those games where you just are inside one house that is the entire setting, and you kind of have to keep moving around the house to trigger certain events. So at times that can be confusing because you have to do laps practically until something happens, you know? You can't necessarily just like figure out the puzzle and move forward. Sometimes it takes you looking at a wall for too long or moving in front of a certain door for something to trigger for you to progress forward. So even though the story was interesting, there was a couple times I got stuck because I just didn't look at the right thing or do the right stuff to trigger the next thing that the story needed. So I would say sometimes stories like that get more confusing because sometimes you don't know what you're supposed to do because there necessarily isn't something you can solve. It's just a matter of the game catching up to where you are. This story was kind of dark. There was definitely a couple of graphic little moments in it, but overall, another, indie horror that was a quick playthrough that I would definitely recommend. Last but not least, we are on to the physical media section of this. Now, bear with me. I couldn't peel off any stickers this month because I have these nails still and I can't do anything with them. They'll be gone by next month, so I'll have these stickers off. But we did get 2 books. First off, I got this Buffy the Vampire Slayer book. My husband is obsessed with Buffy, and he was looking at this, and at first I thought maybe this was, just stories from the show, but these seem completely unique from what he was telling me. So this would be really cool to go through. And it has a 1. So I'm assuming there's plenty in this series, but I might have to keep my eyes peeled for more. And then next up, I found this that's called The Body in the Woods. Now, of course, that sounds spooky right off the rip. It says Alexis, Nick, and Ruby come from very different backgrounds, and they end up going together to join this Portland County search and rescue. And on their first mission, they're teamed up to locate an autistic man that's lost in the woods. What they discover instead is a dead girl. In the friendship that will be forged in danger, fear, and courage, the 3 together must find the girl's killer before one of them becomes another victim. Bro, sounds right up my alley. Right up my alley. I can't wait to dive into this because it really does feel like something that I will like. I actually did finish one of the books that I got previously. I read through The Island on my plane ride over for TwitchCon. I should have brought 2 books because I finished it on just the plane ride there. Really, really good. I had covered that one of my previous episodes, so if you were interested in The Island, definitely recommend the book. I read it in one sitting. And then for movies, I've got Van Helsing, which this is horror-esque. It's borderline. But either way, I've been having this obsession with Hugh Jackman. So when I saw this, I was like, I can't pass it up. So, vampire hunters, hot girls and men and things. Great movie. If you haven't seen Van Helsing, go watch it. And then one of my absolute favorite movies from Matthew Lillard, we got 13 Ghosts. And of course, why do they have to put the sticker right in the middle of it? Come on, Goodwill, you're killing me. But 13 Ghosts, I love this movie. Surprisingly, I didn't actually watch this movie until like only a couple of years ago. I had somehow just not watched it. I think I thought it was something else, and I just never got around to it. But man, this movie is so weird. I love it. Then we have The Lost World. I know some of y'all said Jurassic Park aren't horror movies, but I needed to complete the trilogy. I had found the first one and the third one already at Goodwill. So now we've got The Lost World, so I can complete the set. Next up, I have The Grudge, which y'all already know I love The Ring, but The Grudge, so good. So incredibly good. Something about Japanese horror, they just do it so well. Even when there's the English remakes of the Japanese horror, something about it is just so much spookier and creepier. And I don't always get scared by like ghost story stuff, but this movie scared me. This movie scared the shit out of me as a kid, and it still does as an adult. Then, couldn't pass up this bad boy. We got Freddy vs. Jason. And the thing that I liked most about this is the discs. The first one, we've got Freddy, and then on the second one, we've got Jason. So good. Also, butterfly effect. But anyways, so freaking good. Such a cool just box set. Couldn't pass that up. And then last but not least, we actually I found a movie that I've never heard of before that was called The Reaping. And honestly, the box looking so cool is what drew me in. This says that locusts swarm, rivers turn to blood. Fire rains from the sky. Are you prepared for the reaping? Investigative scholar Catherine Winters is a debunker of modern miracles, brings scientific light to superstition and fraud. But events in Tiny Haven, Louisiana defy even her expertise. There, the 10 biblical plagues seem to be reoccurring, and the more she seeks answers, the more she questions her own beliefs. Catherine must uncover the truth because the plagues are counting down and time is running out. I've never heard of this. And ironically, in the past month of thrifting, I saw it 3 different times at thrift stores. I don't know why. But if you've seen this, let me know down below. What are your thoughts on it? This will be a new one for me. But that is it for the month of September. I told y'all we had a jam-packed episode this month. And hopefully I did not disappoint. As always, if you did like this, please give it a big thumbs up. And let me know down below what you're most interested in checking out of everything I listed. Or if you have watched any of the movies or played any of the games I listed, which was your favorite? What are your thoughts on them? I would love to hear more. I have a jam-packed episode for October that's we're already packed with the games that I've checked out. And I'm sure more movies will be coming. So I hope y'all are ready. I hope y'all are ready for it. But that is all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye!